Hello and welcome to today's Q&A session. My name is Rita Rosenbach. I am the author of the book Bringing Up a Bilingual Child. I'm also the driving force behind this Facebook page, multilingualparenting.com, and the creator of the blog and the website multilingualparenting.com. We also have a Facebook group. If you are not in the Facebook group yet, please do join us. You can find a link through the Facebook page, and remember to answer those 3 joining questions so your application will be handled quicker. So today I will be answering, I have 7 questions that have been sent to me in advance. So those I will be answering. If there are any further questions in the comments, I will pick up those too. So please feel free to ask questions if you are on live. I will also pick up anything in the comments that are added later on. So today I am starting with Violet's question. She is Hungarian and so is her husband. They live in Romania and she is speaking English to their children. Now, Violet, you haven't mentioned the ages of your children, and that would be quite important for me to know. So anyone else thinking about sending in a question, always remember to mention the ages of the children. In any case, Violet, I presume, you haven't mentioned this either, but I presume your husband speaks Hungarian to your children. So you speak English and your husband speaks Hungarian and you live in Romania. And your problem, or you say you're frustrated. You're frustrated when you have Romanian guests and that I have to teach them Romanian. And you wonder, how can you make a schedule for both languages? Should it be learn English and Romanian every day or every week or every second week? First of all, I would think about your priorities. It doesn't matter what the others say. And these other people, are they perhaps monolingual adults who say that you must be speaking Romanian to your children? Because in my experience, usually monolingual adults are the ones who are very quick to express their opinion about which languages someone should or shouldn't speak with their children. Do they have the expertise to say this? Well, in most cases, absolutely not. But what they do is that they think about themselves as monolingual adults, and they think about how difficult it would be for them to learn another other language, and then they think, well, oh, the child doesn't speak the country's language yet. It will be so difficult for them, and then they come with this quite often well-meaning advice that you should somehow switch what you're doing at the moment. So at the moment, your children are growing up with 2 languages, with Hungarian and English at home. And you say that they already understand some Romanian. So this they have picked up from the environment, from the media, maybe from other children. They do not speak. But the thing is, if they are never in a situation where they need to speak, they won't do it. So, pardon me. So I don't, if you're presuming your children are fairly small, which I presume they are because you do not mention anything about school or nursery, then if they will start attending nursery or daycare in Romanian at some point, and they will pick up Romanian fairly quickly. If you do not have this plan, but you are planning to let them go directly to school, and that will be in Romanian, then depending on when how old they are, then you might want to think about introducing some Romanian in advance. You can, however, do this through, for example, through playgroups, just by spending time with Romanian-speaking children. If you do want to introduce some Romanian, you could do that, let's say, on a specific day or a week when you all use Romanian together. So the whole family switches, let's say, for example, on a Saturday, just to introduce a little bit of Romanian. If you will continue to live in Romania, your children will learn Romanian, and there is much more kind of urgency of making sure that they pick up, maintain, and develop their Hungarian as well as their English. So thank your Romanian friends for their opinion, and I think you can continue what you're doing at the moment. If you want to introduce some English, you can, no, sorry, if you want to introduce some Romanian, you can do so. First, try to find some of the children to play with and introduce it that way, or if you want to do it like one day over the weekend. But don't let the Romanian take over the two minority languages that you have at home. If you have any further questions, Violet, just add them in the comments, or then I'll pick them up. And the next question is from Anna. Here we also have Hungarian. She's Hungarian. Dad speaks English, and they live in Asia. They have two children, a 4-year-old son and a 1-year-old son. And she wants to make sure that the younger son speaks Hungarian. The thing is that the 4-year-old does not, he only learned English, so he doesn't know any Hungarian at all. And Anna has tried to switch to Hungarian. Okay, he knows a few words, but that's it. And when they went to Hungary for a visit, he picked up some words. But now, when they've returned back home to Asia, she says that they're back to square one. And he, even when Anna wants to speak Hungarian with him, then he one day. So let me just quote what Anna says. Today he hit me and said, "Speak to me normal." What do I do? Anna asks. How can I turn this around? And she thinks that he completely ignores her efforts. Well, I have been in this situation. So if you want to read about it, you can go to my blog and or to my website and look for Pricken, which is Pricken. That's our Swedish-speaking kitten. That is all about this issue when I when I switched from speaking Finnish to speaking Swedish with my eldest daughter. Anna, put yourself in your son's shoes. He has grown up with speaking English with you. That's what he's used to. That's what he understands. And now imagine how it feels for you if someone you know all of a sudden switches the language that they're using with you. As an adult, you can understand it. You can see the reasons. For a small child, it's very difficult, especially when the closest person to them starts speaking another language. It is that's just a natural way for a child to react. So don't take it personally. Children are very pragmatic. Your son wants to speak the language that comes easiest to him, and currently that's English. So what can you do to turn it around? And why doesn't he stick to, or why doesn't it continue from your visit to Hungary that he wants to speak? For a 4-year-old, the memory of Hungary is probably gone. by now he doesn't remember. He might remember some things you did, but he won't remember the language situation and what made him speak more Hungarian. So to turn it around, for him, what matters is here and now. So if you want to switch it around and try to make him, get him to speak more Hungarian, then you need to make it interesting for him, make it fun for him, make it so he needs to use it. So any normal reasoning, I said any adult reasoning won't work with a 4-year-old. It doesn't help that you say, I want you to learn Hungarian. It doesn't help that you say, well, it's important that you learn Hungarian. It doesn't help that it will be good for you when you're adult that you can speak Hungarian. None of those reasons make any sense to a 4-year-old. What makes sense to a 4-year-old is if it's fun, or if it's something he really, really wants to do. So this is what you need to think about. What is your little 4-year-old really interested in? Can you bring in Hungarian into that activity? Could you find, for example, his favorite book, but in Hungarian? Could you start doing some activity and do it in Hungarian? I don't know what relationship or how he feels about his little brother. What you could do is to ask him to help you to teach his younger brother Hungarian. Children at that age are usually very keen on helping, so we should give them, in any scenario really, every opportunity help when they can. Also remind him of situations in Hungary where he did use Hungarian, and especially anyone he really likes in Hungary, his grandparents or cousins or uncles or aunts or any other relatives, tell him that he will be able to speak Hungarian with them. So just concentrate on what he loves and what he thinks is fun, and then bring the Hungarian into that. And then go to the website, my website, multilingualparenting.com, and look for, there's a search box top right. Search for words like motivate and motivation. You will find loads of posts and Q&As that deal with how to motivate children to speak a language. Hi, Carla. I will pick up your question at the end of this session once I've been through these that have been sent in advance. So next question is from Aika. She's Russian. Her husband is Hindi, and together they speak English, and they live in Germany. So they have 4 languages to deal with in the family. And Aika says they are using the one parent, one language strategy at the moment. So she's speaking Russian and dad is speaking Hindi. And now she's noticed that although she or her husband, neither of them speak English directly to their son, who is 2 years old, he has picked up a lot of words in English, and now Aika wonders, could she, instead of using the one parent, one language strategy, speak English to her son? Every parent can, of course, choose which language they want to speak to their child. To their children. Things to take into consideration are, first of all, your priorities. If you want your child to learn Russian, then the exposure needs to come from you, Aika. it depends on how important this is. Keep in mind that if you switch to English, then not only will that put in question whether your son will learn Russian, which he probably won't unless you arrange some other exposure, it will also mean that there will be a lot more English in the home, and also his Hindi exposure will be, it will be kind of, there will be so much more English exposure that Hindi may well also be in a situation where there's not enough exposure to it. To be able to give you exact or more exact and detailed advice, I would really need to have a session with you so I could see how much exposure your son gets to each language, so I could kind of make an assessment of how this will pan out in the future. With regards to switching from Russian to English, it's remember, it's not only the language, it is the connection to that part of his background. He's partly Russian, so if he doesn't know Russian, it will be a lot more difficult for him to understand the Russian culture, and to also during visits to Russia, if you still do, whether you have relatives, grandparents, and other relatives there, the communication will not be as easy for him. He might, this is from experience, when I have spoken to children, adult children who have not learned their parents' language, and I've never ever found or met anyone who has said, I regret learning a language. However, I have met many an adult who has said, I regret that my parents didn't stick with their languages and taught them to me. So that's maybe something to think about. Also, since it is English that you would like to pass on to him, keep in mind that English is one of the easiest languages to find extra exposure for. So should he want to learn English later in life, he could. So just because it feels to you that he's picking up English better than Russian, that might be because he hears you speak more than what you have time to speak to him directly in Russian. So if you want him to learn Russian, then stick to Russian and make sure that you always address him in Russian when you speak to him directly. That was Aika's question. And then we have Claudia's question next. Claudia speaks French and Portuguese. Her husband speaks Portuguese, and they live in Holland in a Dutch-speaking environment. Claudia is fluent in both French and Portuguese, and when she's alone with their 15-month-old son, she speaks French, and then when her husband comes home, she switches to Portuguese, because that's the language they met in, and that is their common language. So it feels unnatural to speak French, which is fine. And Claudia's worry is that she thinks, can she switch from one language to another? Should she always be consistent in only using one language? Will it confuse him? No, your son will not be confused. Children can distinguish between different languages, and you will be using French and Portuguese in different scenarios. French when you speak directly to him, and then Portuguese when your husband is around. This is actually quite an ideal situation for him to pick up both French and Portuguese, because otherwise there might be too little exposure to the Portuguese. And like you say, he will learn Dutch anyway if you continue living in Holland, so that's not something you need to worry about. And you are also, Claudia, your question, should you introduce a different language then when he starts to talk? No, I think you have done the right thing and continue what you're doing. Speak French to him when you are alone with him, and then you can have Portuguese as the family language. That's fine. He will not get confused. And then I have Javi's question. He lives in Sweden with his wife who speaks Swedish, and they use the one parent, one language. So he speaks Spanish and his wife speaks Swedish to their child. And the question came as a comment to a post about using a non-native language with your children, and his concern is that his wife has said that she could learn Spanish alongside their children or their child, and whether this could be negative for the child's language learning. And no, it's not. It's not negative. Child will learn Spanish from you, will get the accent, the vocabulary, the phrases, everything from you. The child will instinctively know that you are the native speaker, and that's from where they will learn Spanish. I don't know how much your wife speaks Spanish, but if she wants to learn, she can well do so alongside your children. What you can do is to speak Spanish to her, and she can answer in Swedish. She will pick up just from the situations at home when you use Spanish. If she's eager to learn, she will learn at the same time. As what she can also do is to use some app to learn words, just to keep up, because very soon what will happen is that your children will speak more Spanish than she does. So she could, along with learning during like family time, she could, if she's got time, she could use some app, for example, like Duolingo or something that is meant for adult language learning. So yes, it's fine. You can switch slowly to using more Spanish at home, and that will give your children a really solid base in Spanish, because what they hear at home is mostly Spanish. So you can try to make Spanish the common family language, although your wife would still speak Swedish directly with the children. And if you have any other questions, just add them in the comments. And the next question, yes, I have two more questions. There were a lot of questions to go through today. Comes from Isabella. She's Polish and her husband is Slovak, and they live in New Zealand in an English-speaking environment. And they have a 6-month-old son. Now, Isabella, you haven't mentioned which language you speak together. Your concern is that Polish and Slovak are very similar, and that you think it might be confusing for your child because they are similar. I just last week wrote a post about this. So if you go to the website multilingualparenting.com, it's the link is on the homepage. If anyone's looking at the recording, then go to the Q&A archive and you will find a Q&A about passing on two similar minority languages. Stick to what you're doing. You speak Polish, Isabella, and your husband should speak Slovak. A child will be able to distinguish the languages. And yes, there will be some mixing. All bilingual children do. My grandson is in the stage when he's learning Swedish and English, and he's happily mixing words let's say he takes a Swedish word and adds an English plural ending to it, or just uses them as he sees. He just takes a word that he finds first, and that's fine. That's a phase in bilingual children's language learning, and it's nothing to worry about. It will sort itself out. What you could do, Isabella, is, for example, create language specific areas in the home. So you have stuff from Poland that reminds you of Poland. Books, maybe you can listen to some music in Polish. Maybe you have some home furnishings, anything that reminds you of Poland. You can have that in one place, and then you have similarly a place for Slovak. That's just a good, generally a good idea to have at home when you have several languages, that you have some areas where there is only a certain language spoken, so the child knows that this is now Polish or Slovak. And also, as you didn't mention which language you speak to each other, or with each other with your husband, if you both understand both languages, then you can go ahead and one speaks Polish and the other speaks Slovak. Might feel strange to start with, but in that way you would have a balanced time of exposure of both languages in the home. And then the last question, Carla, I will take your question as well, and any others that come up. So the last question is from Chaya, who is a nanny, who will be the sole language exposure for Bangla to a 21-month-old boy who is now speaking English. His mom only speaks English, and his dad also speaks English. He can understand Bangla, probably also comes from a Bengali family, but has never spoken, or at least is not comfortable speaking beyond very conversational. So they have done great thing. They found a nanny, Chaya, to come into the family and speak Bangla with the son. Chaya, you will be, let me check, 3 afternoons a week. You will be with the son, and you are wondering how to introduce Bangla, because he doesn't read, the little boy doesn't really speak it, and she's a bit apprehensive of showing up and speaking only a language he doesn't understand, and she's also worried that he will be confused and not be able to bond with me, but with you. At the same time, you're nervous about speaking English with him, so he doesn't get used to it. I agree completely with trying to avoid English as much as possible. So I hope the parents have prepared him for you coming by telling that you will be speaking Bangla, because he would have heard it. I'm sure this in some scenarios with the family. So if there is one family member that he knows, preferably that he really likes, that only speaks Bangla, then this can be used as a reference point, that he will be getting a nanny, somebody will come and stay with him, and someone who speaks the language of, be it then grandma, grandpa, uncle, or cousin or something. So he gets a reference point. And then of course it depends on his nature. If he's kind of open and playing and not too shy, then it will be, I wouldn't expect it to be a big problem to get along with a 2-year-old. I've seen 2 or even 3, 4, 5-year-olds who do not speak each other's languages, and they play just fine with each other. And moreover, you will understand what he says. So what you would do is to start very slowly and show with your body language that you understand, and do fun things together, but stick to Bangla, and make it clear that you understand him, and then try through your actions show what you are doing. With you staying with him 3 afternoons a week, he will learn to understand Bangla, but don't put too high expectations on him soon starting to speak Bangla, because it is perhaps not enough exposure for him to become confident in speaking it. It depends very much on how he learns language, because children are very different. Some of them are very keen and pick up a language quickly, and for others it takes longer, just like with adults. So if the parents really want him to learn Bangla, then there probably needs to be some more exposure, but to be able to answer that in more detail, I would need to do an assessment like I do in my family language coaching. I always do an assessment first through a questionnaire, and to know how much exposure there is to each language, and then we'll come together during a Skype session, and then I put together a family language plan to make sure that whatever family's goals are, that they can be reached. So good luck, Chaya. I'm sure you will do a good job, because if you're a nanny, just be with the child, play with him, and do a lot of actions, repeat what you're saying, and just be open and show that you understand. I'm sure we'll do fine. But if you have other questions, just add it in the comments. So those were the questions that I had that had been sent to me today. I just noticed that my little French friend here is leaning over. And now, Carla. Oh, Carla, I'll pick up your question. Your husband is French and you're American. He speaks, you have a 1.5-year-old daughter. And you speak English and he speaks French. And sometimes you speak to her in French too. And is this a mistake? Just like I answered one of the previous questions, your child will not get confused that if you sometimes speaks French, she will be able to keep the languages separate. That's not to worry about that at all. You haven't, if you live in the US or in an English-speaking environment, she will pick up English anyway. Yes, because if you mentioned a French immersion school. Are there other ways to ensure that our daughter continues to speak and perhaps write in French? I presume you are in the US. If this is correct, let me know. Or in an English speaking environment. So if you're French, if you feel comfortable in French, then what I would recommend is that you could speak even more French at home. Maybe switch to French as your common language, if that's okay. And there many parents have taught their children to read and write the minority language. What you can do is to look for homeschooling resources in the language that you want to teach. Of course, this will take time and effort, but that's what we have to do as parents of bilingual children. We have to put in a bit of extra time and effort, and sometimes money if possible, to make sure that they grow up learning, becoming also literate in the languages. So yes, it is possible, it can be done. That was Carla's question. Let me see, I've got some. And Lore, I have Lore's question. Lore, you're French trying to teach English to your kids 6 and 8 years old, and you are living in France. Husband is also French. Okay. I don't know what I should teach first to them. When I read a book, they don't understand at all. I think the routines are the best, and what works better. Yes, if you're just starting with teaching English, then do it through play, do it in a natural way, do it, for example, in situations where your children will know what you're saying. Let's say during breakfast. You have let's say orange juice in your hand, and you ask in English, do you want a glass of orange juice? So you then give the glass, or put the glass, pick up the glass and ask at the same time. Your child will know from your action what that means. If you want to read some books, then read books that they already know what's happening. Very simple. Keep it very, very, very simple. Simplify even French simple books. Simplify them. But if they know the plot, the characters and what's happening, then you can relay that in English to them. So these are the ways to use a lot of actions and pointing and as familiar situations. And when you are out and about, you can point at cars, birds, houses, and then use the English words. So that's a good way to start. And so thank you for that question, Laurie. And then I had Elif. Elif, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You live in Turkey. Your husband and yourself, you speak Turkish, but you've been raised abroad in English-speaking countries. When should I start speaking to my child in English so that he can pick up my accent and learn the language? You don't mention how old your son is. If you're comfortable in speaking English with him, then the best time is now. I always say the best time to start with the language is from birth, and the second best is now. So there's no reason why you couldn't do it. And again, use the same ways as I just mentioned. That is depending on how old. You don't mention how old he is now, then just do things that he already knows, or if he's really small, then just start speaking English with him. Your husband will speak Turkish, and since you are in Turkey, he will learn Turkish. All right, he's 2 months old. Fine, perfect. Just start now. Start speaking English now. That is the best time to do it. Because Turkish will come anyway, and English will be your minority language, so that's what you need to put the emphasis on. And thank you, Elif. And then I have the last question for today, which comes from Tuami. Thank you for the question. You are a Spanish native speaker trying to raise a bilingual child in English and Spanish. You'd like to know some traditional games to play with the kids to motivate them to speak English. Right. What I will do, Tuami, I mean, you mentioned hide and seek, Sly Fox tag. I Spy is a good one. I spy with my little eye something starting with an A, and then you look around you and say words that start on that letter. What I will do, I will once I finish this session, I will send you a link to British Council's website which is aimed for children learning English. There are a lot of suggestions on what different games. There are also some online games and quizzes and stuff that you can use to teach English to your children. So that's it. Hi Daud, you're asking where I'm from. I'm originally from Finland, but I'm a Finland Swede, hence my accent. I have lived in the UK for 20 years, but you can still know where I'm coming from. And I've raised my daughters to speak Swedish because that's my closest language, although my mother spoke Finnish, but that's what I went to school with. So they are now adults. They live here in the UK, and currently I'm helping to raise my grandson to speak Swedish as well. My daughters also speak Punjabi, that's their father's language, and of course English, since we now live in England. So we've been through the different experiences. Thank you, Daud. Very happy to meet you. Thank you for taking part. So those were the questions I had for today. The next Q&A will be in 2 weeks, and I will be picking up any questions sent to me through the website and directly to me as well. If anyone wants to email me, it's rita@multilingualparenting.com. Thank you very much for participating. Have a great day and keep on speaking. Bye.